Your savings account is robbing you blind, and I can prove it with one number, 72. Most people think putting money in a safe 1% savings account is smart. The reality? It will take 72 years for your money to double. That's almost a lifetime for one doubling. But here's the kicker. While you're waiting 72 years, inflation is eating your money alive. I'm about to show you a 5-second math trick that billionaires use to determine if their money is actually growing or slowly dying. By the end of this video, you'll never look at your bank account the same way again. And I guarantee you'll want to check your own numbers immediately after watching this. Let me tell you about Sarah and Mike, two people who saved the exact same way for retirement, but one ended up with double the wealth. The difference? One 5-second calculation that completely changed how they thought about money. Sarah discovered this at 25. Mike learned it at 35. That 10-year gap cost Mike over $260,000. This isn't about get-rich-quick schemes or risky investments. This is about understanding how money actually works in the real world. Something they should have taught us in school but didn't. Think about this for a second. You probably spend more time researching which phone to buy than understanding how your money grows. Most people can tell you the specs of the latest iPhone, but have no idea if their savings are actually keeping up with inflation. The rule of 72 is stupidly simple. Take 72, divide it by your annual return, and you get the number of years for your money to double. Savings account at 1%, 72 divided by 1 equals 72 years. 1 doubling in a lifetime. Stock market average of 10%, 72 divided by 10 equals 7.2 years. Here's what this means. In the time it takes your savings account to double once, the stock market could double 10 times. Let's say you have $1,000. Savings account after 72 years, $2,000. Stock market after 72 years, over $1 million. Same starting amount, same time frame, completely different psychology around money. But wait, it gets worse. That's assuming zero inflation. In reality, inflation has averaged about 3% annually over the past century. So while your savings account money doubles in 72 years, the cost of everything else doubles every 24 years. This means by the time your $1,000 becomes $2,000, the purchasing power is actually less than what you started with. You're literally going backwards while thinking you're moving forward. Let me give you a real-world example. In 1950, a gallon of gas cost about 20 cents. Your great-grandfather could fill up his car for $3. Today, that same fill-up costs $60 or more. If he had put that $3 in a savings account in 1950, it would be worth maybe $15 today. But that $15 can't even buy a quarter tank of gas. The money grew, but the wealth disappeared. This is the invisible thief that most people never see coming. But here's where the psychology gets interesting. Most people focus on not losing money instead of growing wealth. It's called loss aversion bias. Your brain is wired to fear losses twice as much as it values gains. So you stick with 1% savings accounts because they feel safe. But here's the psychological trap. You're still losing money. Inflation runs about 3 to 4% annually. Your 1% return minus 4% inflation equals a negative 3% real return. You're literally paying the bank to hold your money while it loses value. The wealthy think differently. They ask, what's the real risk? The real risk isn't market volatility. It's inflation destroying your purchasing power while you sleep. This is why Rich Dad Poor Dad's Robert Kiyosaki says savers are losers. It sounds harsh, but mathematically, he's right. Warren Buffett puts it another way. He says the stock market is a voting machine in the short run, but a weighing machine in the long run. Short-term ups and downs don't matter if you're measuring decades. And here's something most people don't realize. The rule of 72 works in reverse too. If inflation is running at 3%, your purchasing power gets cut in half every 24 years. So while you're worried about losing 10% in a market correction, inflation is guaranteed to cut your wealth in half every generation, which is the real risk. Now, let me tell you exactly how this played out for Sarah and Mike, because the numbers will shock you. Sarah starts at 25, $300 per month for 30 years at 10% annual return. Final result, $619,000. Mike starts at 35, $500 per month for 20 years at 10% annual return. Final result, $359,000. Mike invests more money each month but ends up with less wealth. Why? Compounding. Sarah gets 4.2 doubling cycles. Mike gets only 2.8. This is the psychology of delayed gratification in reverse. Most people think I'll start investing when I have more money, but time is more valuable than money because you can't buy more time. Each year you wait costs you exponentially more than just that year's contributions. Think about this. Sarah's money had an extra 10 years to compound. Those extra doublings created an additional $260,000. That's the cost of waiting. But let's break this down even further. In Sarah's first 10 years, she only contributed $36,000. But those early contributions, because they had the most time to compound, ended up being worth over $200,000 by retirement. Mike's larger contributions in his later years, they're worth almost exactly what he put in because they didn't have time to multiply. This is why every financial expert screams about starting early. It's not just advice, it's mathematical reality. Albert Einstein allegedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. He said those who understand it earn it, and those who don't pay it. And here's the thing about compound interest that most people miss. It's not linear growth, it's exponential. The first few years look boring. You're putting in money and seeing small returns. But in the later years, the growth explodes. Let me show you what I mean. If you invest $100 a month at 10% annual returns, here's what happens year by year. Year 1, you have about $1,200. You put in $1,200, earned almost nothing. Year 5, you have about $7,700. You put in $6,000, earned $1,700. Year 10, you have about $20,500. You put in $12,000, earned $8,500. Year 20, you have about $76,000. You put in $24,000, earned $52,000. Year 30, you have about $226,000. You put in $36,000, earned $190,000. See what happened? In the last 10 years, you earned more than you put in during the entire 30 years. That's the power of exponential growth. Most people quit in the first few years because the returns look small. They don't realize they're planting seeds for a forest that takes decades to grow. So what should you actually do with this information? Step 1, calculate your current doubling time. 72 divided by your return rate. Step 2, ask yourself, does this timeline match my goals? Step 3, understand the risk spectrum. Savings accounts, 1% return, 72-year doubling. Safe but inflation, negative. Let me explain why this is actually the riskiest option. You have a 100% chance of losing money to inflation. That's not safe. That's guaranteed wealth destruction. Treasury bonds, 5% return, 14.4-year doubling, moderate safety. These are backed by the US government, so they're considered very safe. But with inflation, your real returns are often close to zero. You're treading water, not swimming forward. Certificates of deposit, maybe 3 to 4%, 18 to 24-year doubling. These lock up your money for months or years and barely beat inflation. You're accepting opportunity costs for minimal returns. High-yield savings accounts, currently around 4 to 5%, 14 to 18-year doubling. Better than regular savings, but still barely keeping up with inflation. And these rates change with Federal Reserve policy. S&P 500 index funds, 10% historical average, 7.2-year doubling. Moderate volatility. This represents the 500 largest companies in America. Over any 20-year period in history, this has never lost money, but it can be volatile in the short term. Real estate, 8% average return, 9-year doubling, plus leverage potential. Real estate has the advantage of using other people's money through mortgages. A 20% down payment can control a full property, amplifying your returns. Individual stocks, highly variable, from negative returns to massive gains. This is where you can find companies that double every few years, but also where you can lose everything. It requires research and risk tolerance. Bitcoin, 90% average over the past 10 years under 1-year doubling, extreme volatility. Bitcoin has created incredible wealth for early adopters, but it's also crashed by 80% multiple times. Only invest what you can afford to lose completely. The key is understanding. Higher returns require higher risk tolerance, but keeping everything safe guarantees you'll lose to inflation. Most financial advisors suggest a mix, some money in stable assets, some in growth assets. The younger you are, the more you can afford volatility because you have time to recover from crashes. But here's what they don't tell you. The biggest risk isn't losing money in a market crash. The biggest risk is inflation silently destroying your wealth while you think you're being safe. A 1% savings account in a 4% inflation environment is guaranteed wealth destruction. A stock portfolio that averages 10% but occasionally crashes is still wealth creation over time. This is the mindset shift that separates the wealthy from the worried. Let me give you a historical perspective. From 1926 to 2021, the S&P 500 averaged about 10% annually. During that time, it experienced the Great Depression, World War II, multiple recessions, the dot-com crash, the 2008 financial crisis, and the COVID pandemic. Despite all that chaos, patient investors who stayed invested and kept adding money consistently built generational wealth. Meanwhile, people who kept their money safe in savings accounts and bonds saw their purchasing power slowly erode decade after decade. Let me give you one more example to drive this home. If you're 25 years old and you invest just $200 per month at 10% annual returns, by age 65, you'll have over $1.1 million. If you wait until you're 35 to start, that same $200 per month gives you about $395,000. If you wait until 45, about $137,000. The cost of waiting just 10 years, over $700,000. This is why time is called your most valuable asset. You literally cannot buy more of it later. But what if you don't have $200 a month? Start with 50, start with 25, start with anything. The habit is more important than the amount. Here's a psychological trick. Most people think they need to have everything figured out before they start. Perfect is the enemy of good. Start with something simple, like an S&P 500 index fund, and add money automatically every month. You can always optimize later, but you can never get back the time you lose by waiting. And here's another psychological insight. The pain of watching your investments go down in value is temporary. The pain of realizing you could have been wealthy if you had started earlier is permanent. I've talked to people in their 60s who say their biggest regret isn't the money they lost in the market. It's the decades they spent in savings accounts thinking they were being smart. So here's your homework. Calculate your current doubling time right now. 72 divided by your annual return. Drop that number in the comments. I want to see if you're on track or if you need to make some changes. And here's the thing. Every day you wait to optimize, this is a day of compound growth you can never get back. But let me address the elephant in the room. What about market crashes? What if you invest and the market goes down? Here's the reality. Market crashes are temporary. Inflation is permanent. Over any 20-year period, the stock market has always recovered and reached new highs. But inflation never stops. And here's a secret the wealthy know. Market crashes are opportunities, not disasters. When prices are down, your regular investments buy more shares. When the market recovers, those extra shares multiply your gains. Warren Buffett says, be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. The best time to invest is when everyone else is panicking. But you have to have the stomach for volatility. And that comes from understanding that short-term fluctuations don't matter if your timeline is decades. Let me share one more story. In March 2020, when COVID hit and the market crashed, most people stopped investing or even sold their holdings. But people who kept investing or even increased their investments saw incredible returns over the next 2 years. The S&P 500 dropped about 34% in 5 weeks. Terrifying if you're thinking short term, but within 5 months, it had fully recovered. And within 2 years, it was up over 60% from the pre-crash highs. People who stayed invested not only recovered their losses, but made significant gains. People who sold at the bottom locked in their losses and missed the recovery. This is why understanding the rule of 72 is so important. It forces you to think long-term instead of reacting to short-term noise. If you know your money doubles every 7 years in the stock market, a temporary crash becomes just a blip on the radar. You know that in 7 years, 14 years, 21 years, your wealth will have multiplied regardless of what happens next month. Now, let me address taxes because this affects your real returns. Money in retirement accounts like 401ks and IRAs grows tax-free until you withdraw it. This can add 1 to 2% to your effective returns. Money in regular investment accounts gets taxed on dividends and capital gains. But if you hold investments for more than a year, you pay capital gains tax, which is usually lower than income tax. The key is to maximize your tax-advantaged accounts first. 401k match from your employer is free money. Max that out before anything else. Then IRA contributions, then taxable accounts, but don't let tax optimization paralyze you. A taxable account earning 8% is still better than a savings account earning 1%. And here's something most people don't consider. Inflation is a hidden tax. If inflation is 3% and you're earning 1%, you're effectively paying a 2% tax on your wealth every year. The government doesn't send you a bill, but your purchasing power decreases just the same. At least with investment gains, you can see the taxes you're paying and plan around them. Let me give you a framework for thinking about risk. There are different types of risk, and most people only think about one type. Market risk, the chance your investments go down in value temporarily. Inflation risk, the chance your money loses. Purchasing power permanently. Opportunity risk, the chance you miss out on growth by being too conservative. Liquidity risk, the chance you can't access your money when you need it. Concentration risk, the chance that having all your money in one place hurts you. Most people obsess over market risk and ignore all the others. But inflation risk and opportunity risk are often much more dangerous to your long-term wealth. The rule of 72 helps you quantify opportunity risk. If you're earning 2% when you could be earning 8%, you can calculate exactly how much that conservatism is costing you over time. 6% difference means your doubling time goes from 12 years to 36 years. That's not just a little bit worse, that's catastrophically worse over a lifetime. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just watch this video and forget about it. Take action today. Calculate your current doubling time. If it's longer than 15 years, you need to consider taking more risk. Open an investment account if you don't have one. Start with just $25 or $50 a month if that's all you can afford. Choose a simple S&P 500 index fund to start. You can get fancy later, but don't let analysis paralysis stop you from beginning. Set up automatic transfers so you don't have to remember to invest. Make it as easy as possible to do the right thing. And most importantly, start today. Not next month, not when you get a raise, not when you pay off your credit card. Today, because every day you wait is a day of compound growth you're giving up forever. If this video just saved you from 40 years of 1% returns, hit that subscribe button. I'll show you exactly how to build a portfolio that beats inflation and grows real wealth. I'll break down the psychology of money, the specific investments that build wealth, and the mental traps that keep most people poor. Remember, it's not about time in the market, it's about time in the market, and that time starts today. The rule of 72 isn't just a math trick, it's a lens for seeing how every financial decision either accelerates or delays your wealth building. Use it. Your future self will thank you. And here's one final thought. Money isn't just about money. It's about freedom. Freedom to choose how you spend your time. Freedom to help your family. Freedom to pursue your passions without worrying about paying the bills. The rule of 72 is really about how long it takes to buy your freedom. Do you want to wait 72 years or 7 years? The choice is yours. But now you have the knowledge to make it wisely.